they were outraged. Democrats were. In fact, they voted it down, if I remember correctly, when Trump talked about filling up the strategic oil reserve even more with around $24 or $25 a barrel of oil. And they said, oh, no, we're not going to do this. And now they're talking, at least based on what I've seen, about wanting to buy $70 or $80 barrel of oil if they can get the price down to that level, which is just further evidence of Democrats not understanding basic business.
Yesterday, a lot of talk from the White House over price of gas, the energy situation, and how everyone knows this. It's one of these truisms of politics. High gas prices, not good for the party in power. It's just not good. And high gas prices, when the party in power has been saying things like, we want to end fossil fuels are destroying the planet, it's icky, it's gross, other countries should make it, we shouldn't make it, etc. That makes it even worse for them politically. And the administration had a tough day yesterday. I mean, they were trying to turn this narrative around. First of all, they're releasing money from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve for the most obvious political purposes. But yet, Clay, here is Joe Biden. This is clip one. This was just after we finished the show yesterday, saying, all right, so come on, man, it's not political, he says. Play one.
What is your response to Republicans who say you are only doing this SPR release to help Democrats in the midterms?
Where have they been the last 4 months? That's my response.
Is it politically motivated, sir? This
No,
move
it's not.
3 weeks before the midterms?
Look, it makes sense. I've been doing this for how long now? It's not politically motivated at all. It's motivated to make sure that I continue to push on what I've been pushing on. And that is making sure there's enough oil that's being pumped by the companies so that we have the ability to be able to produce enough gas that we need here at home, oil we need here at home, and at the same time, keep moving in the direction of providing for alternative energy. That's what I've been doing. Now, the problem is these guys are asleep. I don't know where they've been. And they seem, the price at the pump should reflect what the price of a barrel of oil costs. And it's not going down consistently.
The price at the pump does reflect what the price of a barrel of oil is right now. I can't tell if Joe Biden, Clay, is so stupid he doesn't know that, or he's so dishonest he doesn't care how dumb he sounds when he says it. But they can't have it both ways. It can't be that Biden is the most green energy pushing, big spending for the Green New Deal president in history, which I think he is at this point, certainly 2 years into a presidency, but also he wants more oil to be pumped by the companies. And releasing oil from the strategic reserve doesn't change the supply at all, except for a short period of time, right? This is just, this is a quick fix to the problem that doesn't fix the problem. And yet the White House knows it's just not enough, man. It's just not going to work.
Well, also, saying we've been doing this for 4 months doesn't make it not political. In fact, that makes it even more political because you started in the summer as people were thinking and paying attention to what was going on with inflation, and you were desperate to try to bring it down. And what I would say that I think is so key here is, remember, they were outraged. Democrats were. In fact, they voted it down, if I remember correctly, when Trump talked about filling up the strategic oil reserve even more with around $24 or $25 a barrel of oil. And they said, oh, no, we're not going to do this. And now they're talking, at least based on what I've seen, about wanting to buy $70 or $80 barrel of oil if they can get the price down to that level, which is just further evidence of Democrats not understanding basic business. I mean, I remember, Buck, Trump talking about two things that I think we probably should have done that would have been genius economically. One, remember, in March of 2020, the price of a barrel of oil went down to negative territory. Do you remember that? They were already on the ships, and they had nowhere to put it, and they didn't have any way to store it. And that's when Trump started looking around and saying, well, I know this is a difficult time, but why wouldn't we buy as much oil as we possibly can at the greatest price that we're ever going to see in our lives?
It was on sale. It would have been a brilliant time. This would be like, hey, half off at the West Elm outlet or something, right? I mean, this would get people or Bed Bath & Beyond. Does Bed Bath & Beyond still exist? What was the one that went out of business recently? One of them
I think Bed Bath & Beyond still exists.
No, I know. One of them went into bankruptcy, didn't it? Or maybe Bed Bath & Beyond went into bankruptcy, but it's still around. Point being that this was a massive sale opportunity to buy up a lot for the strategic reserve, and they didn't do it at the time. And it's yet another instance of bad judgment for this administration. Did you hear Ducey, by the way, going back and forth with Karine Jean-Pierre
I
over
tweeted this clip out, which was fantastic.
I mean, play clip 4, because this is the fundamental point. The Democrats they have a hostility that is religious in nature toward fossil fuels. It's irrational. They've created this whole belief system around, climate change. And yet then they turn around and say, come on, oil companies, just like take less profit and pump more oil, as if this is a dictatorship and that's how it works. Here's how Ducey and Karine Jean-Pierre go back and forth on this. Play 4.
You're asking oil companies to further lower gas prices. What makes you think that they are going to listen to an administration that is ultimately trying to put them out of business?
How is the administration trying to put them out of business?
Well, they produce fossil fuels, and this president says he wants to end fossil fuel.
That's a great take. Peter Ducey just does incredible work. And the other thing I would say, so Trump was right about wanting to buy as much oil as he could when it was on sale effectively. And there's a great line, and I'm paraphrasing it, from Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors in the history of certainly America and the world. Warren Buffett's big advice is be greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy, which is a good way of basically saying don't go with the prevailing sentiment because you end up getting yourself in a lot of trouble. The other thing Trump wanted to do, and I thought this was brilliant at the time, it didn't get enough discussion, he wanted to lock in our national debt interest rates when they were super low. And there was an argument that we could have done so. And very few people are talking about this right now, Buck. But if you look at the expenditures, the debt and the interest that we are going to owe on our national debt of $30 trillion, as we are increasing interest rates, it becomes more and more debilitating to the overall budget as it eats up more and more of our yearly outflow of cash. And the idea of locking in 1%, 2% interest seemed kind of brilliant to me. And Trump floated both of those ideas, and Democrats shot them both down.
The bill has come due for a lot of bad decision-making by the people in charge. This is what we face now as a society, and we haven't even seen the full extent of the bill. Maybe this is for the food, but the bar tab hasn't been added on yet, because if we go into a recession, that will affect growth. Growth will affect our ability or, the expansion of the economy that will allow us to pay for all the things that the government is currently put on autopilot, as well as the additional spending they may throw into the mix. So, yeah, it's going to get rough out there for sure. And for the people who have made so many of these decisions to be continuing to push this, Clay, it's just madness. I don't know how else to describe it.
And we don't talk in the country very much about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, but understand this. What Biden has done over the past several months to be releasing our strategic reserve of oil in an effort to bring down prices is unprecedented in American modern history. Obama actually rejected this idea because the purpose of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is to have it there in the event of a true emergency. High gas prices is not ideal, but it's not a national emergency in the way that this Strategic Petroleum Reserve was designed to be. So not only is Biden clearly playing politics with this Strategic Reserve, he's also doing it in a way that no politician, no president of either party has ever done before, in a desperate ploy to try to limit his ass kicking, which I frankly think he's going to take in a big way in these upcoming midterms. One of the things that is staggering to me, maybe it shouldn't be as staggering to me, is as we get closer and closer to the midterm, it's amazing how rapidly all of the talking points are shifting. And we've talked about this a lot on the show. Oh, we didn't mean defund the police. In fact, we never even said that. Oh, crime. We never said that it was important to get more criminals back on the streets. We never have believed in soft on crime policies. We're talking about energy right now, and I saw this quote, and I thought, we got to play this audio. MSNBC's Chris Hayes is now saying, what do you think? Keeping gas prices low is the key to preserving and strengthening the future of our democracy. Have you ever heard this argument before? Here is Chris Hayes. I've heard it certainly from people who are on the right. Like, yeah, we want low gas prices. We should produce as much as possible. But this is how rapidly the pivot is occurring on the left. Listen to what MSNBC's Chris Hayes was saying.
Oil companies, OPEC, Saudis, not exactly eager to make sure prices are low before an election where Democratic candidates are vulnerable. It's also why Saudi Arabia might want to suddenly announce a cut in oil production right before the midterms. Of course, Democrats can't just throw their hands up and say, oh, well, because the future of American democracy is in, as we report night in, night out on this program, real peril, existential peril. One of the two major parties is currently under the thrall of a guy who tried a violent coup unsuccessfully, but has basically announced he'd do it all over again. By one analysis, 60% of Americans will have an election denier on their ballot this November. The stakes in the upcoming elections are the highest they've been in a very long time. This is the first post-coup election in America. We cannot expect threats to democracy to be the only salient issue for voters, even if it is salient for a lot. I mean, there's millions of voters, and people have complicated and busy lives, and they've got things they're thinking about when they go to the polls, like the cost of living, inflation, and yes, gas prices, the one price in America that is posted on every street corner, those digits, they are going to be front of mind for voters. And so we find ourselves in a situation where keeping gas prices low is key to preserving and strengthening the future of our democracy. And so here we are. Hence, Biden releasing oil from the reserves today.
I need to translate this from lib nonsense here. He's saying anything to win is okay in this moment because the existential threat to our democracy, you have to say it like that, by the way, is the Republican Party doing well in this midterm. That's it. When they talk about threats to our democracy, I want everyone to understand, whenever you hear that from a Democrat, they mean Republicans being in power. That is the threat to our democracy. They can say, oh, January 6th. No. They've created this world. They've created this illusion for themselves, this delusion, where it's all tied in together. Trump, January 6th, Mitch McConnell, the GOP, Kerry Lake, Ron DeSantis. It's all one big threat to democracy.
And of course, the reality is, what they have done is actually a bigger threat to democracy, right? I mean, rigging the 2020 election, keeping the Hunter Biden story from coming out, the unholy alliance between big tech and the Democrat Party. But Buck, here's my thought. I was thinking about this morning as I was getting ready for the show. We're 19 days out. I feel very good about a Republican Senate and a Republican House based on all the data points, gambling odds, polls, everything else. What is the Democrat playbook if they get a shellacking in the midterm? Is it? I'm curious what you think. Is it, hey, we have to double down harder on January 6th and the threats to our democracy and all of those angles, which have certainly been basically their only talking points for 2 years? Or do they go back and remake their arguments and acknowledge that the American public has fundamentally rejected them?
This is actually I am concerned that in some ways winning this battle could cause problems for the 2024 battle. I mean, winning it big time, right?
The war, if you classify the war as 2024, this spectacular battle.
I was trying to avoid saying the W word because I know all the libs. Oh my gosh, he's calling for war, but we're using colorful language here to describe politics. Okay, so I worry that what happens. I shouldn't say worry, but what I think could happen is that you have a Clinton-like effect, Bill Clinton-like effect, where after the 1994 midterms, Newt Gingrich as speaker comes in, and all of a sudden things start getting done. Yeah. People start saying, you know what? Fine. Biden will sign some spending package that does infrastructure, and Biden will sign something that has to do with protecting Medicare or Social Security, Republicans get on board. All of a sudden, these things start to happen because otherwise the Democrats have no choice. It is just January 6th. And you have a very different Biden. I know I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because we got what's right in front of us, but I do think you may have a more challenging environment economically and politically to throw at Biden and his reelection than we do when Biden's party has both the House and the Senate. That's what I think
I don't
could
think
end up
Biden
happening.
is going to run because I think he's going to get forced out after the shellacking and the Hunter Biden charges and all these other things that I believe are likely to happen.
I feel like they won't do that, Clay, just because that is handing 2024 to the Republicans.
I think that the polling data is so bad for Joe Biden right now that they will say we have to find somebody new. But this is going to be a really interesting discussion. What I still don't know, though, Buck, is will they accept that the American public has overwhelmingly rejected their pitch, or will they just convince themselves that they did a poor job of selling something that they still think is really good? In other words, when Nancy Pelosi comes out and says Joe Biden has had one of the greatest 2 years of any president in generations, is there an element of the Democrat Party, because he did deliver on many left-wing perspectives, that is unable or unwilling to confront the truth? And your Bill Clinton analogy is a good one, and I would argue also Obama in 10. Both of those guys were far more skilled politicians, both Obama and Clinton, whatever you might think about their politics. They were way more deft and adroit as politicians than Biden is.
Can't you see Biden coming out all squinty-eyed and being like, come on, man, I feel your pain. I feel it. Feeling your pain. It's like, doesn't have the same effect as good old slick Bill.
Also, when you have been given all these speeches everywhere talking about how America is democracy's in peril and everything else, and then you lose the House and you lose the Senate, and you immediately pivot to, well, let's work together, guys. It's like the democracy in peril thing doesn't work if you immediately say, okay, let's start compromising.
But you got to remember, Clay, they have no principles and no shame.
I respect that.
Do you know?